welcome to the Hope Report, your light in the darkness, brought to you by the Lindell Recovery Network. I am Jason Perry.
I'm Melissa Huray. Happy Monday, Jason. It's a rough start to our Monday, but the kids went away to a horse camp. So I am in this super quiet house.
You're an empty nester, except
Yeah.
for Rags.
And Mike went away, or he went to work. He actually went to the office, and yeah, just Rags and me. Just heard him barking before the show, but I'm hoping to have a very productive day. Unfortunately, our guest had some struggles getting on, but we'll have to get her rescheduled. So
We have
it is
both
Monday.
been there where, the technology just doesn't cooperate, whether it's the technology's fault or user error. It's hard to say sometimes, but it's just part of the deal. That's why we get on so early, to make sure that we troubleshoot.
It's important. Yes. Thank you for your efforts, for your hard driving to try to get the guest on. You work very hard at that, Jason, and we do appreciate it.
Well,
it's, when you were doing the tech, I went over to the table and I was praying, and I was like, Lord, just use this show for your glory today. Whatever happens, if our guest doesn't get on, he's still going to use us, and we submit to that. So it's just a Monday thing.
And we'll have her back on.
Absolutely.
It's just, and it'll probably be something as simple as going and buying a headset.
Yes. Yeah. I've had many problems like that. And after about a year, it seemed to sort of get into a flow of doing updates and doing the little tech troubleshooting. And it hasn't been too bad lately.
Once you understand the process of how things work, you can see where it's breaking down. Yes. And then you can solve it. But when it's all one big mystery, the odds of you solving it are like zero.
Well, that happened to me recently because I had to get a new stand or a new, what do you call it? Connector for my camera. I forget what it's called. But anyway, so Mike set this up for me. God bless him. I love that he did that, but he left something unplugged. So I couldn't figure out why my camera wasn't working. And then I'm looking around and I figured out, well, it was not plugged in. So sometimes it's as simple as that. But I figured it out on my own.
Often it's user error, we'll find out.
Yes.
And sometimes the universal power everything off and turn everything back on works.
That's always a good one. I use that one quite frequently. And
as do I. That's the first thing I do now because that fixes so much.
Yeah, I love it. My internet's been crashing now and then occasionally, and something weird.
I think there's something weird going around everywhere because that's been even happening here. I don't know if, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist and say they're testing our connections or they're attacking our infrastructure, but our cell service has gotten instantly poorer.
Yeah, I've noticed that too.
Yeah, and everything else. So I don't know what's going on. I mean, it could be that our phones are paid off and they want us to buy the new phones.
Yeah. They want you to see problems in your current phone.
Keep a permanent phone payment in your system.
Yeah, just like your car breaking down once you pay it off and start pouring money into it.
So how was your weekend?
It was good. Jason, it was a nice weekend, really nice weekend with my family. We spent a lot of time outside, did some yard work. Mike tore up some stuff in the front of the yard. He was out there like beating on tree roots and, doing manly stuff like that, chipping away at thick roots and doing manual labor. Yeah, it was good. We went to church, had a just really good time at church. James preached about wisdom. We should talk about that sometime. I think that'd be a good topic for us. I learned a lot. And some of the things Pastor James says about his kids are they hit home for me. And he was talking about how he, never let them sleep over at anybody's house, unless they knew the family extremely well. But they just didn't let their kids go anywhere. Even when they were teenagers, they wanted to see what they were doing and know what they were doing. And he said, you might call that a helicopter parent, but it's wise. It's wise to do that.
You're their guardian to make hard decisions that they shouldn't be making.
Yeah, right? I think you would have appreciated some of his points. He also talked about a young man his daughter was interested in who he did not like. And he said, she'd bring this guy around and I just knew he was not the one for her. So instead of saying, oh, well, maybe we'll get used to him. The daughter brought him to church one day and she's like, oh, Dad, isn't it great? I brought so-and-so to church. He's here in church. And he said, yeah, he can go to another church. I could see you doing that, Jason. Yep. If your girls start bringing around some guy, hey, look, he's in church.
He can go to another church. That's good on him for fighting for his daughter.
Well, I guess his whole point of saying that was that now she thinks she got married recently, like a month ago. And he said, she thanks me for that now. She is grateful that she knows she shouldn't have ended up with that guy. And so anyway, his fatherly instinct and intuition told him it was not a good guy for his daughter. And
well, but that's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing, particularly as our kids get older, to go against their will.
Yeah,
So let them make decisions, and it's like, well, are they making an emotional decision, or are they making a rational? And how much wisdom do they have at that age, right? The whole reason why we went through all the bumps and bruises we went through is we earned our wisdom to help our kids not have to learn our wisdom, right?
Yes.
The hard way, to be able to impart it instead of learn it from wounds that you're all going to acquire,
learning the hard way. Yeah.
The road, that's you can either be smart and you can listen, or you can be hard, is what we would say in the SEAL teams. And you're going to learn the same thing regardless. And you're either going to have scars, or you're going to avoid that and be able to do something else instead. And, when you're a kid, particularly as you get closer to 16, 17, you think you know everything and your parents know nothing.
Isn't that the truth?
And now looking back at what I knew at 16, I knew nothing, and I was wrong on everything.
Same here. Yeah, I told my daughter to go back upstairs and put on a different shirt this morning. It's like, what, because they know what the rules are, and then they continually try to see if you're paying attention, or maybe you've changed your stance, or you're going to back down. It's like,
are you worn down enough today?
Yeah, right.
Not engage and fight that fight.
Yeah, that's so true. And I was like, go put on a different shirt. We're not wearing workout tank tops to the horse camp. And she, was a little miffed about it, but went and did it. Yeah, went and did it. And then her sister was like, I'm glad you did that, because she shouldn't be wearing that shirt. Helpful little sister, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, how was your weekend, Jason?
Our weekend was, productive. We finally got our crane built where we'll be processing all the big animals, so the cows and the pigs. I've been trying to do that since January. So it's been like we put the posts in the ground in January, and lining up somebody with a tractor, with the right people, with the people who have the knowledge to be able to do the whatever, was way more challenging than I give it credit for. And, like anything, I'm like, oh, wow, we're going to have a tractor here. Let's be done in 15 minutes. 2.5 hours, 3 hours later, I'm still trembling, holding a steel I-beam over my head, 12 feet in the air on a ladder, right? And it's just like,
wow, brutal. Yeah, you always think it's going to be a lot faster than it is.
Yeah, and it's like, always go worst case. Everything's started 4 hours, right? It's going to take 4 hours, and then if you get done before then, gravy, right?
Yeah.
And but we got it done, and now the hard part comes. Now it's time for us to, we have so much life on the farm, right? So we have all the new 8 piggos. We have, all these chicks. We have 40 chicks that are about to go outside for the first time. And we have 100 more coming, I think, next week. And so we have all this life, but, we spend right now, before the 100 gets here, I just couldn't believe it when I went to the store with Lauren, and we were spending $113 on chicken feed alone.
Oh, man.
That's a week. Right. That's too much. Right. Especially during the summer. Like, we got into that phase during the winter, and somehow we're in that phase. But that's also for the 7 turkeys, because we lost one to a neighborhood dog, which, if you guys haven't heard that story, somebody from our congregation, their dog got out right during the middle of all that raccoon stuff and killed one of our 8 turkeys and ate half of it. I mean, giant turkey. And now we so we're really starting to look at, hey, now we got 17 pigs. Well, when those 17 pigs are full grown, that's gonna be a lot of feeding to do. I mean, that is, so we need to do some planned, like Lauren says, we need some planned death in the farm now, if you know what I mean. Well, now we have life, and now it's time for us to harvest, right? It's literally time for us to harvest. We should not ever have to buy pork again in our lives. That's the deal.
17
right now, right?
pigs. Wow. Yeah.
So we're going to sell probably 7 of those 8 feeders to people that they'll raise, and they'll process them themselves. But, it's time for us to start, harvesting. And that means we're going to have to do a cow. And, the first cow isn't going to be hard to do, because she's so unlikable. But the rest, and this pig is a sweet pig too, Bubbles. But this is going to be one of the hard ones for me, right? I'm the guy who hates killing raccoons, right?
Yeah.
Raccoons, a lot of people kill raccoons. They don't even think twice about it. I'm feeling bad for the thing is it's looking at me and I have to put it down. I mean, that's just,
Yeah.
that's, if you want to call that the Disney indoctrination, here I am at 51 now, right? 51, trying to overcome Disney indoctrination for the first.
Well, I don't know if it's that. I mean, I think it is sad to kill animals and sacrifice them, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it is Disney
I mean, I know plenty of people who don't think twice about it all. Like, what do you like? It's food. Like, does the python pity the snake, the mouse? Does, do the chickens pity what they ate? Does anyone else pity their food? And, and then, just right in line with all this, I saw the FDA just approved lab
the
grown
fake
meat.
chicken. Yeah. Yeah, I
What
saw that
is, I don't
yesterday.
even want to know.
No.
Like, I'm not going to try that probably in my life. If someone else wants to, and I'll wait to see what the side effects are for growing
No,
some,
thanks. No, that's frightening. That's positively frightening.
Yeah.
I didn't even try the plant. Oh, what's that? Impossible burger.
Yeah, the same here.
Ooh.
So, we have some planned harvesting that we have to do. And, I'm sure it'll be hard, but we'll get through it,
Yeah.
And this is the first one that I've ever gonna be doing the carving, the butchering myself. So it's gonna be slow going, it's gonna be a lot of sights and smells that I'm not profoundly used to. But I have to walk through this crucible because, I owe it to them. Instead of putting them in a trailer, making them afraid, going somewhere where they're going to smell death all around them and someone coming out and doing something, I'd much rather them put their head in a bucket of milk, thinking it's the best day ever, and then lights out.
So that's next weekend? Is that?
We're trying to do the weekend after 4th of July.
So you can enjoy your birthday, enjoy the 4th of July. First.
Yeah, it's just we haven't had a day, like a day off, like in a really long time. Like the wedding wasn't days off; it was setting up the wedding and then, doing that and entertaining and all that stuff. So just a day to kind of chill. I wouldn't mind getting like a pontoon boat, just floating out there on a dock, doing nothing.
Yeah, you deserve that. You should do it.
Yeah.
I hope you do.
So I hope I do too. But that's basically it on the farm. So I mean, again, a productive week. Last week was a real tough week for me, as I think it was a tough week for you as well. And just everything was impossible last week. Like it took everything I have not to self-destruct every step of every day last week. Last week was a day of white knuckling it. And that heaviness is gone for me to this week. So
that's good. I'm glad to hear that.
But I had to white knuckle every conversation. I had to white knuckle everything last week.
Yeah, I had a hard time too. I've been working on surrendering to God. I tend to overwhelm myself. I come up with plans of things I want to do. I want to do, an hour of warfare prayers and praying in tongues and surrendering gratitude every morning. And I've been working on just surrendering as soon as I open my eyes. And if I don't do anything else, I surrender the day to Him, ask Him to help me obey and override my free will if I'm getting off track. And then I trust that I'm being led. That's the problem I have, is that I pray that prayer and then I think, then I start fretting about whatever is happening, or why am I in this moment right now? Did I lead myself here, or is this something He's leading me through? So trying to just, every time I catch myself doing that, to surrender again and not try to control things and try to just be present in the moment and attuned to His voice for what He's trying to tell me to do.
Yeah. And for me, it's like, hey, is this where I'm at? Is it because of a bunch of bad decisions I made, or am I just having to build trust right now?
Yep.
And I'm going with the trust route. I'm trying to let the anxiety go away. I'm trying to put everything else to the side and say, okay, I'm going to do a trust. Either way, God's got me, and it's not going to be the end of the world.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what I'm working on. Sometimes I'm successful. Other times I'm not. Sometimes my flesh just, I'm up at 2 a.m. staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out how I'm going to do something or other. And then other days I'm like, okay, I'm going to burn through the entire book of Acts.
Yeah. Yeah.
To go to sleep, to get me off this. I've done the old few prayers, hey, I'm feeling anxiety and this and that. And sometimes it's legitimate and that works. And other times I'm like, no, this is my flesh.
Mm-hmm.
This is me. And I thought I shared a video with you on
Yeah,
Instagram,
I saw that.
and I'll tell you, I found a lot of wisdom in what he said. Right? He's like, here I am. I'm angrier, and I can't remember what the other thing he was about. He's like, I'm angrier and something else. We'll just call it anxiety.
Yeah.
I have more anger and anxiety now than I did before I was even saved. What is this?
Yes.
And then he went into this process, and he's like, and the way he described it was well done. And it was like,
Yeah.
no, that's your flesh that you need to crucify. That's your personality. That's you. That's all these things that we need to work through, refine, and do all that stuff. And I found a lot of wisdom in what he said. I don't know any like you knew his name right away. I'd never seen anything from him, and here it is. And I'm something came up, and I'm like, oh, let me see if this guy gets it right. And I thought he did a good job on it.
No, I think I agree with you. I've always liked John Bevere. He wrote a book called The Bait of Satan that was really helpful to me, just helping you realize how often offense invites the enemy to have a foothold in your life.
Mhm.
And I agree with you. I do believe that most of what I battle is fleshly. I don't think it is necessarily demonic, but like with addiction, we look at it with demonic, fleshly, and physical. And I think there are three facets. But when I
Sure.
see people under demonic possession, if you will, it's usually atheists, very wicked. A lot of deliverance people would disagree with me on that. But we watched Nefarious again over the weekend on
I'm
Saturday
actually
night
where did you watch it?
on Amazon Prime. It
Okay,
was,
I think I'm gonna get that and watch it. Like,
yeah,
that's
so
one I think is worth watching.
it was.
I watched Avatar this week. We had a date night,
Oh,
right? It
nice.
wasn't even a date, and we watched the second Avatar, which I don't have a single problem with that show or anything on it. It's fantasy.
Yeah.
I really love watching reimagined environments, like
Yeah. Yeah.
the fish and the birds and the plant, like that. I watched that for an eye massage,
That's
right?
cool.
I didn't care really about the story. Yes, of course, all the evil guys are white guys, and they're remaking Indians and cowboys and Indians and
Yeah.
settling this, and but I checked all that stuff at the door and just said,
Just enjoy it.
I just want to watch something only they can do, and as long as they're not overtly trying to turn me against Christ, I'm gonna
Yes.
just enjoy it. And it was that. It was incredibly long, as Lauren will tell you. She stayed awake till midnight to watch it,
I
which
would
it takes a lot.
struggle with that.
Yeah, but I enjoyed it.
No, I'm glad you did something just to enjoy it. And with Nefarious, I was going to say, I really liked the way they laid out the demonic part. Because watching it a second time in the theater, I picked up a lot of things that I hadn't seen the first time. But when the demon was speaking for the host, he laid out how he took over. And it began with, he laid out the steps. It was the guy never was discipled. He wasn't bad. It mentioned baptism, like at an age where you can consent to baptism.
Yeah.
So it just made it easier and easier. They take possession little by little. And then there was his grandmother gave him a Ouija board. There was a series of things, a series of agreements. So you could clearly see how that guy became demon possessed in the movie. It wasn't a Christian who was struggling, with
Yeah.
sin. But we talked about this before, that I do think addictions have some sort of demonic influence. And I think you kind of agreed with me on that, where the addict is choosing the substance over everything else, where they're completely
Yeah, they're
blinded.
making an idol and they're escaping. And when you're escaping, I think you're giving a foothold. Anytime you make an idol of something else,
Yeah.
that's when you run the risk. And
Oh, yeah.
whether that's pornography, whether that's anything, right? And then what happens? Your life spirals out of control about that, and it just gives more and more footholds.
Yes, yes. So we watched it with the kids this time, and I thought maybe it'd be too intense for Emmy, but we didn't have her watch the electrocution. Sorry for a spoiler. We didn't have her watch the scene at the end, but overall, I think it really generated a lot of good a conversation with them about how we can invite demonic footholds. And I did tell them this, and some deliverance people might disagree with me, but I wanted to reassure them. I said, you guys, as believers in Jesus, as born again Christians, you cannot be demon possessed. Okay. And some may disagree, but I didn't want
I
uh,
don't. I
Emmy
agree with
going
you.
to bed. I think you do. I didn't want Emmy going to bed and going, holy crap, a demon is going to jump into my body. So I was educating them about ways we can become afflicted or tormented, or the kinds of things that invite demonic oppression. So I think you would like the movie, and that it was really well done, and it's just it's like more of a thriller. I see it as not as rather than a horror movie.
Well, I mean, if it's like the screw, I mean, I heard it's a modern version of like the screw tape letters, and I think
Kind of, yeah,
the
yeah,
screw tape letters I thought were very useful, and
yep,
I thought C.S. Lewis like nailed it, right?
yeah,
And again, when Wormwood,
yeah.
you
The
know,
patient and
yeah,
the
and the
patient.
patience, yeah, exactly. It was just really insidious, and you could see it. And as I look back, and I'm like, wait, I'm listening to this music that's condoning a behavior that I want to do that I know I shouldn't do,
Yeah.
and now I'm manifesting that in my head more and more and more and more, and then I'm starting to baby step my way into that behavior,
Yes.
and now I'm in that behavior, and now it's acceptable, and now I'm doing this, which is now causing me to lie or to commit other things, and you just devolve. And then you see people who are at the end of their life who have completely, and there's someone in my life that I'm not going to name like this, who have completely devolved into a state. My grandfather, I'll talk about my grandfather. My grandfather was a loving, kind, great dude. He had his struggles because he was, again, sexually attacked by
Oh yeah.
priests in an orphanage in Newfoundland, and he was an atheist. But I always remember him being kind and loving. Yeah, he was sharp in his humor and criticism, and gave me wounds that I don't think he never in a million years need gave me. He just didn't know any better, right?
Yeah.
He just didn't know any better, and I know he loved me more than anything. Towards the end, once he lost his leg, and he just lost his will to live, and he just became a monster. He became my mom was telling me things that he would do, like in the grocery store, just opening things and eating them in the store in his wheelchair, and just he just became a complete demonically possessed, angry, frustrated, just a wheelchair of rage is what he became.
Gosh,
And
it's
I
sad.
never got to see that, and I'm glad I didn't get to see that. But I'm
Yeah.
also sad I didn't get to pray for him, and intervene for him. But there is
Yes.
somebody who and I found my first porn in his garage.
Oh wow.
In his garage he had a bunch of Playboys, and it was all about the articles, right? All about the articles.
Yeah, the content.
And then it went from Playboy to Hustler to Penthouse to Hustler, so harder and harder and more hardcore.
Right.
And that's a guy who kept it together through his 30s and 40s, and then just continued to go down and down and down and down.
Yeah.
And that's what I think happens with possession, until at the end you're a thrashing, angry, bitter,
Yes.
shell of a husk, before the end.
Yeah, you make agreements with greater and greater levels of sin, and like C.S. Lewis says, he says the safest road to hell is a soft downward slope. I love that, and I think it's from the Screw Tape Letters. The soft underfoot, no sudden turnings, no signposts. That's just such a chilling quote. It's not like you think of it as being something really dramatic that's going to lead you onto the highway to hell. And it's usually, so I thought the movie did a great job with that. And also it talked about issues like assisted suicide, about abortion, about the love of self, and also God's view of his creation. Of course, the demon referred to God as the enemy, just like in Screw Tape Letters, but it touched on a lot of important cultural things going on right now without being preachy, without just doing it in a really dramatic, powerful way.
So Lauren just did a little experiment, and she was saying, hey, they mentioned Mother Earth and it wouldn't be Earth because they weren't on Earth, but it was Mother Awa, which is their deity that they were doing there. And when she typed in Mother Earth, it auto-corrected the caps. So crazy. She just did an experiment and did to see typing God, and God was lowercase g.
Wow. That's scary. Yeah.
And then we have this comment. I love the show. I had a friend once tell me that there is none holy but God. So I've tried to stop saying terms like holy moly, holy cow, holy blank, etc.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
That's good, Mary Beth. I mean, I find myself saying holy man sometimes.
I say holy smokes rather than cussing, and
that gives me pause.
It does. I think that's in there. It's just, I've got nothing.
Trying
to come up with something to say.
Oh, I have
that isn't
something.
offensive. Go ahead.
I have this elderly
Cheese
lady.
and curdles, or
Like
cheese and
she would
sprinkles.
say, "Oh my lands, oh my land." It sounds like "Oh my lanta," but "Oh my lands," like goodness gracious, like that. It was pretty funny. Yeah, I
Yes.
say "Holy man," Lauren. That's my go-to. But
Yeah, and now I'm like, well, come on, Mary
give
Beth,
me something. What can I say? What can I say?
Louise.
I say "Good Lord" sometimes. I'm just trying to think of exclamations I make.
Golly.
Golly gee. Yeah, golly
Oh,
gee
golly.
willikers. Jason, from a guy who used to cuss like a sailor. I mean, I think you're doing pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, when my guys from Boston came here and they were around me, they were just like, who
What
are
happened
you,
to you?
dude?
Yeah.
He's like, we haven't they every other word, it became so hard. Oh dear me.
I'm not
I don't
sure if
like
I
that.
can get behind that one.
Yeah.
I appreciate the help though. So yeah, you can definitely see a change in people when you are used to them
I'm
talking a
gonna
certain
come up
way.
with something like crazy, like
Goodness gracious.
purple
I said that.
octopuses or
Some expletive that's not an expletive.
yeah. You gotta figure out something. Yeah,
So
they
yes.
did. They did, Lauren. They actually commented on my lack of swearing.
Oh, I am criminy. Oh yeah, I say criminy. Yeah, I do.
What
I
does
don't know
that
where it
mean?
comes from. Well,
Is
see, that's what
criminy
I've been
Latin
doing.
for like whatever?
Yeah, I've been looking into what's the origins of some of the stuff I say, or just common phrases. I have to look into that. I suffer the same predicament. Well, the struggle is real, Mary Beth. Yes, we're all on the sanctification journey. So I'm glad, Jason, you got to watch just a movie for fun. I mean, I rarely hear you doing that. So
Well, this
I'm
is the
glad you
first
did.
one in forever, and so I'm looking forward to maybe doing another one. But again, like it's so hard with Hollywood. I
It
had to
is.
sit there, and I'm going through the decision matrix if it's appropriate for me to even watch John Wick. Right now,
Yeah.
John Wick doesn't have sex, it doesn't have any of that, but it's violence incarnate.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to figure out like where do I stand on all this stuff? And I guess if I'm
Yeah.
having to ask myself a question about it, I probably shouldn't be watching it.
I know. I do. I've become a lot more discerning and careful about all of that. And it's just funny. Mary Beth said barnacles. I have goofy nicknames for my kids, and one of them I call Barnacle. And I don't know where I came up with it, but that's one of her nicknames.
Well, Anya is a perfect name. Barnacle is a perfect name for Anya.
She's like a Klingon, right?
She's a Klingon, and she scratches you when you like it's painful. A barnacle is painful.
Yeah.
As a seal, having encountered barnacles.
Oh yes.
And the worst than that is a step up from that is fire coral. When you hit fire coral, your day changes because your skin blisters and everything.
Your day changes. I didn't even know barnacles were painful. I thought of them as like a slippery kind of mollusk.
Oh no, they're
thing.
scratch. They shred your skin.
Oh, I didn't know.
So you're calling your daughter a scratchy, painful
barnacle. I think it came from SpongeBob. I know it's probably bad I'm sure there's lots wrong with SpongeBob. I shouldn't even mention it. But yeah, barnacle. How's it going, barnacle? It's just like a little greeting. Yeah. It's goofy.
We call Yaya honey badger because that's
Steve Bannon's term, honey badger.
Is it?
That's where you got it, right? No, I bet.
No, we got it from that funny guy with the very effeminate voice, doing the play-by-play. No, the play-by-play of watching like a National Geographic of this honey badger doing incredibly crazy things, and that's where we came up with it. It's not Christian content. It's not Christian content.
Oh, good. So you're giving me a pass on SpongeBob then. Mike always says, I think SpongeBob was made by a bunch of stoners. Like some of the jokes in there are little.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Adults would get them, but kids would not. So yeah. Honey badger. That's cute. You guys have cute nicknames for your kids.
Well, one, the walking sanctification machine is known as Yaya. I mean, she's been cutting some molars right now and some teeth, so she has mad GI problems. On top of that, I will just say it at that. And she's actually, she has actually been relatively pleasant for her.
Well, that's good. She looks so sweet, and those blonde curls. I mean, you have very adorable children.
We're gonna record Anya when she's acting as her true self. And
Then I'll
everyone,
believe it,
we
right?
are actually considering a business model for anyone considering children. We're going to give them Anya for a week. And then if they still want children at the end of that week,
They're ready.
they're
Then
ready.
just let her, but yeah, let them borrow Anya for a while. See if you're really serious. Well, we had the girls were helping out in the church nursery today or yesterday. I think that's helpful for them too. They were telling me about what kids were naughty and what they were doing and how all of the the nastiness that was going on in the church nursery.
Oh man. So that was our weekend. That's been 30
Yeah.
minutes.
Well, okay, Jason, I wanted to tell you, I also started listening to this book about gratitude, and I listened to it before like 12 years ago, and for whatever reason I decided to listen to it again. And back then it maybe seemed a little new agey, and it probably could be seen as it does talk about higher power and things like that, but there are still a lot of really good nuggets that I got from it. And I remember listening to it when Mike and I were going through such a hard time, and it was talking about turning your complaints into gratitude. And that, I know that sounds so simple, it sounds so like basic.
Hard to do.
Yeah. Or take it. So I started making a list of the things that I complain about the most or the things that I am struggling with the most. Because the woman, her name is Melody Beattie, and she wrote the book called Codependent No More. And people who are in addiction recovery or self-help have probably heard of this. It's one of the best-selling self-help books of all time. But this other book of hers is called I hate the title. I almost don't want to share the title. Making Miracles in 40 Days. Okay. We're going to use miracle as a sort of a vague term. Miracle could be you change your perspective on the problem.
Not a supernatural thing.
Yes. Yes. Well, actually, she says it's something you could not do, so it has to be supernatural. So it could be your perspective changing, though. It could be God enabling you to change the way you see something. So she actually, I came to find out she's from Minnesota. She's from St. Paul, and she bought this crappy old house when she was a newlywed, hated the house. And she said, every night I had a newborn, and I thought, how could I bring my baby into this horrible house? So every night she would, after the kid went to bed, she'd sit in the middle of her floor and just think of how much she hated that house. And plus her husband was kind of a deadbeat. He was never home. He wasn't helping. He didn't have a mechanical brain cell in his head. And she would sit there and just dwell on it. So anyway, long story short, she got this idea to start thanking God for what she didn't like. Okay. So she started taking 10 minutes each day to write down. And all of a sudden things started to change with that living room she sat in. She got herself a bucket of paint and started painting it. The point of the story is that everything she needed came to her. I don't want it to sound new agey, manifesting law of attraction stuff, but she was able to get whatever she needed. And she ended up transforming that whole crappy little house in St. Paul just with her own, grit and just being able to have a better attitude about stuff. And I thought, wow, I could learn a lot about this. I really complain about a lot, especially when I feel powerless about things like living in Minnesota and different things like that, which is number one on my list. So I wrote a list about what do I complain about and how can I, spin it to be grateful until God does whatever he's going to do. So that book really helped me. I listened to it Friday and Saturday, and it changed my mindset about a lot of things.
Well, that's good. I think, I was wondering if I should go back and read. Guys, what helped get me through buds, when I was an atheist was Tony Robbins. Awaken the Giant
he's great.
Within.
Yeah.
That was so fundamental into my getting through that and the whole preparation going up to it. I'm like, man, I wonder what I would think of that today. I wonder if I read that today, would I be horrified by it? Like, is it like so counter biblical, or would it re-equip me with those tools again?
That's so interesting you say that, because when I read that book 12 years ago and I was in a very different spot and I wanted to do the exercise to manifest something, I was doing it in a sort of new age manner. Like, I'm going to do this thing and God's going to bring my thing. And I think part of me thought this probably isn't going to work, but I had a desperation about it rather than turning it into whatever God wants to do. And just God doesn't want me to be complaining. I mean, he wants me to give thanks in all things. So that would be interesting to know if you look at it differently, or if you would just glean different, you'd probably still take a lot from it, I'm sure, but maybe in a different way.
Yeah, I think I might like bang out an audio. Like, it's not a big book and whatever, but I think refreshing myself again to see if I see any like heresies or any new agey stuff in there, or is it legitimate habit building and leverage? Like the things that I loved about what he did was whenever you came to a decision point on something you were working on, you attached like 5 things of pain that were directly caused by said decision.
Oh
And
yeah.
then you directly tied 5 positive emotions and positive feelings of what would happen at the end of this if you didn't do that thing.
That's good. I really like that. I remember you mentioning that before, and that stood
I
out to
called it
me.
leverage, and I don't know if he
Yeah.
called it leverage or if I'm just making it, but it's building leverage, the positive leverage on every decision. So your
Yeah.
alarm clock goes off. All the things that are negative in your life that are going to happen if you stay in bed and you don't get up and do what you said you were going to do. And then the 5 things or whatever it is, 3, you can make it whatever you want it to be, to where, and then he really helps you sit in those emotions, like visualize you being there, what this is going to feel like, this and that. And then when you come to that one of those decisions comes up, procrastination, hitting the alarm, whatever it is, you immediately recoil from the pain of that.
Yeah.
And then, that's your first thing. You're like, whoa, that's going to cause X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
And then you're like, and if I don't do it, long-term gains, ABC.
That's good. No, I love that. And it makes me think of, we've talked so much about fear of man. And, I've had prayer and deliverance. It doesn't deliver my fear of man, nor would I want it to, because where's the courage if you have no fear? So what I've been focused on is not avoiding things. And so anything, like we had this vocal coaching on Friday night and I didn't really want to go. I was like, I don't really have to go. I mean, we're not required to go. It's like, well, why wouldn't you go? You're going to learn a lot. It's for 3 hours. You should go. Why don't you want to go? Well, because it's going to be awkward and you're going to have to make small talk with people and you hate that. So anyway, I made myself go. And right when I got there, it was super awkward. Like people standing outside, the church was locked, so we couldn't get in. Everyone's talking to each other and I'm standing there like awkwardly looking around and I'm trying to talk to people, but it's not working. So I just look at the ground. I'm like, I'm just acknowledging how it feels right now. It feels, I want to run from this moment because I really hate it. But then once I get in there, it's better and things go a little better. But you're right. Like walking through that and then thinking, what did I gain from that? What was the payoff? If I would have avoided, if I would have stayed home and avoided this, I would have missed out on a lot.
Yeah. What are the consequences? You gave in to one of your fears.
Yeah.
Which gives that fear another grain of salt or whatever in a pile of pot control over you, instead of picking it up and you taking it back, and you're building momentum against your fear.
And it's disempowering. And in the moment, it feels good to avoid something. And even procrastination actually reduces dopamine. I read that somewhere. I can't cite the source, but that
100% believe it.
Yeah, you avoid things, and in the moment, very short term, you will feel a sense of relief. But later on, you will regret and you will be mad at yourself that you didn't do what you were supposed to do, that you knew you should do.
So I'm about 3 weeks into working out, mentoring that guy down the street, the 21-year-old.
Yeah.
And, and he's like, he came over and he's like, man, I didn't want to come over, but, and the workout was horrible, right? Meaning that none of us set PRs. We didn't hit because we were both exhausted. And, but he's like, I'm glad we did it. I'm like, that's a lesson of life for you right there. You're never going to regret a workout you did ever once.
So true.
But you regret every one you didn't do.
Yes.
Every one that you don't do, every run you don't do, every workout you don't do. Yeah. Every time you're going to look back and you're like, oh, right. Instead of at the end, you're like, you know what? Like I was most proud of the workout that we did the other day, that instead of progressing, I regressed and everything. I was sore because I wasn't sleeping, all these other things. But at the end, I felt better at that because I knew it served a purpose, and that purpose was momentum. That purpose was not procrastination. It was doing what you said you're going to do.
Yes. And you start to be able to trust yourself. You start to trust, I can trust myself that I can follow through with things that I need to do. Because that feels really bad too, to not show up for yourself. I don't mean that to sound new agey, me based, but
no.
You have to be able to build identity in being able to follow through with things you should do. And I've come to the conclusion that the more I do, the better I feel. And I don't mean wear yourself out and stress yourself out, but when I just have days where I'm sitting around doing nothing, and there aren't a lot of days like that, but I always feel better because we're going to increase dopamine by completing a project or just yesterday, I cleaned out my desk and it has really improved my feeling of just sitting here today, that I don't have papers and everything all over. So being able to just be productive, I think.
Well, that's the Jordan Peterson things. You want to change the world, start by cleaning your room.
Yeah, or making your bed. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, that's a space that you control.
Yes.
And then that'll spill into the next room, and that'll spill into this, and it'll spill into your life. And again, it's about making positive changes where you can, because chaos, as you stare at chaos, it whittles away at your serenity.
Yes, it does.
It is a battering ram on your peace.
Yeah.
And having two little children that are chaos incarnate in their self, and you're just watching them go around the house creating more work for you.
Oh, I know.
Right? It's like you're watching them like literally empty cupboards onto the floor of the kitchen. You're like,
what? I just cleaned this whole room, and now in 2 minutes it's been dismantled.
And you're just, so that battering of your serenity is going to come. And when you have chaos factors like children, right, where you don't want to be the smothering parent who drains all joy out of them exploring, is there some value into them taking things out of the cupboard and putting them back in, whatever? Yeah, there's some value in that. There's value in touching and sensing and all these things, and you got to get out of your way, but still, learning to manage these times of chaos. And Lauren does. Like me, I would never make my bed in a million years because I hated doing it in the military. I would never, ever, ever do it. Lauren does it every day. She does the Jordan Peterson thing. She does the other thing. For me, my truck is my world. Right?
So you gotta have it organized.
My truck has to be clean. My truck has to be that. And then when I put the kids in the truck, my stress factor goes up.
I do that too.
Ice cream starts falling everywhere. Yes. Things are melting. I get into the back of my seats are covered in foot mud, and I'm like, no.
I do that too.
My one place.
I know. I don't let them eat in my car. It seems so overly controlling. I mean, unless it's a food that they cannot make a mess with. But I have one super organized kid and one super messy kid. So the 15-year-old will get up in the middle of the night, and I'll be like, oh, I cleaned the kitchen before bed. I come down here, there's cheese everywhere. There's like bowls in the sink. She made batter. So all night long, she's like a total night owl. Her sister is so organized, just completely. I think one's Mike and one's me. Although I grew up.
Which one is which?
Well, I was like the night owl when I was her age, messy, just whatever. I'm not like that anymore. But anyway, it is very hard to have serenity, but trying to keep things. It does help. Getting rid of clutter helps so much with. I learned that in the fast I did in January, that I had this almost like nesting, this urge to declutter and get rid of things and just purge out of my house the stuff that was getting in the way of me and God. And it helps so much. I need to do some more of that.
Well, I think what it is you are making it, again, it's breaking down the do the next right thing on a micro level.
Yeah.
Right. You're saying something to me that needs correction, and you're doing it, and you're getting the dopamine or whatever. There's some reflex or something that happens when you make a positive effect on the world and you solve a problem, right?
Yeah.
And then that starts building on itself, and it becomes a hurricane. And we all have seasons when we're like, where you just have endless energy for whatever reason. And if you mobilize that right, your house looks great. You take things, you do projects, you do that. And then you have the seasons where it takes everything just to open your eyes.
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes you're just holding on by your fingernails, and at those times, I think you just can do well to not go backwards and not make things worse for yourself if you just hold steady with where you're at.
Well, and last week for me was hanging by fingernails off the cliff, everything just to open my eyes, right?
Yeah.
And now I feel like I'm past that.
That's
right.
Awesome.
And I've turned that page. And am I still my most energetic self? But last week, man, it took everything to move this cup.
Yeah.
I can't explain it. It was one of those things that maybe what some people would call depression, but it wasn't depression. I was just completely mentally,
like immobilized,
physically, and mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally exhausted.
Yeah. Right.
Like I had poured out so much for everyone else that there was nothing left for me, and I hadn't taken any time to pour back in. And I was just on fumes, and I get it.
Yeah. You really needed some downtime. I mean, I'm sure you didn't get a lot, but
enough.
It helps to even get a couple hours. I think it can really make a huge difference.
And to have my wife, it's a difference between having to get out of bed when your wife says, you know what, you sleep in this morning,
Oh,
just do whatever. And then I got up anyways. Yeah, maybe I stayed in 10 more minutes, trying to make
yeah.
sure my back was right, getting set with God, et cetera, et cetera. But
Yep.
then coming out knowing that I was stepping in to help
Yes.
was a way better experience. Now, same exact effect, but because I was given the freedom to choose and I chose to be involved, it had a completely different effect on my psyche.
I told that example to Mike about I shared with him what Lauren did that day
Yeah.
that you were struggling and she came over and put her hand on your heart and prayed for you. And I told him about that. And I said, I thought that was really beautiful. I said, I could be better about that. And he's like, I think you do that. I said, no, but there are times where I'll complain or I'll just have a bad attitude instead of, hey, can I pray for you?
Right.
So, yeah, I think he and I have gotten a lot more just prayer is our go-to so much more than it used to be where we're inviting God into things. But I love that example that Lauren set and how she in that moment you could see that you were struggling and you needed that.
Yeah. And it had, like I said, it bought me. The best way I could say it was like if you're in a firefight and people are shooting at you and they're shooting at you while you're shooting at them, and sometimes you're getting overwhelmed. So what happens is one of your other buddies will do what's called cover fire, and they will overwhelm the enemy by shooting at them, drawing fire away from you to them because you're the threat now, while you put a tourniquet on or you reload your weapon or you move. And
Yeah.
Lauren literally gave me covering fire. She came in, put her shield over me, took the darts that were coming, and went to war for me. And I got to be better about doing that for her. I'm like she's so stoic. When she breaks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like she's so hardcore most of the time and doesn't complain and doesn't do anything and internalizes
Yeah.
everything. But when she breaks, it's drop everything. And I think I've been pretty good. She can sound off there in the chat. Don't be afraid to throw me under the bus, Lauren. But
Yeah.
I feel like when she breaks, I drop everything and go to, because I know it's a 5 alarm fire when someone as stoic and as strong as Lauren is broken. But
Yeah.
we'll
Well,
see if she answers that.
that's wonderful. That's the way it should be in a Christian marriage. I mean,
But what happens? We build up resentment, right?
yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, I was getting resentful over okay, so on Saturday, Mike comes up with another great idea for the summer.
I want to start every episode on Mondays. Hey, what great ideas did Mike have for you
What
guys
is
this
what
weekend?
I know, and he's so sweet about it. I mean, he could go off on me at any moment with the way that I react to stuff sometimes. So he said, "Hey, there's a couple more things I want to do this summer." And when he says that, I just kind of instantly shut down. She said, "You have led the way. I'm praying for each other." That's
Thanks.
great. So anyway, he said, I'd like to do a family picnic. And what I find so curious about this is a lot of the family he wants to see, um, they're kind of difficult.
Yeah.
And some of them are great, wonderful, and I would love to see them. And even to highlight that, some of the people he's suggested this to were not very, very encouraging about it, but then he had a lot who were. They're just getting together for a picnic and whoever can make it can make it. So the first thing out of my mouth was, okay, so another trip up north, you know. So I had a bad attitude about it. And later on I apologized and I said, why would I want to discourage you get putting together a thing with your family? So how can I help? What do you
Well,
so
good
he's
for
like
you.
he goes, "It's gonna be 4 hours of visiting." And I said, "Oh, then we get to go home, right? I mean, we don't have to stay up there, do we?" He's like, "No, no, then we'll just go
Wait,
home."
it'd be great to have a campfire. And then we could all sleep on hammocks and
Oh
we could all
gosh.
do
No,
ghost stories.
Mike
And
panics because June is already ghost stories. June is over and Mike's beginning to panic because there's only 2 more months left of summer, so he might not get in everything he wants to do
it just
before it
started.
starts to snow again.
It just started.
I know. It just started. No, he's better than he used to be. I'll say that, if you can believe it. He is much more reasonable than he used to be.
Well, that's good to hear for
Yeah.
both of your sake.
Yes, we're making progress, but it'll be good. And he tries to prioritize people who he thinks he might not see them again. They're old, and these might be
Uh,
people that he never gets a chance to see again.
well,
So yeah,
I pray that it goes well and that
thank
you
you.
get great weather and great attitudes and everyone can
All the way around.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you become so aware how marriage truly is a give and take. I mean, he does a lot of things that, I know your first example, Jason. What's it going to be? Going to Rafe's church,
I'm not
going
gonna
to
say a word.
deliverance,
I'm not
going to
gonna say a word.
deliverance conferences. He'll do things that are important to me. And that's what I need to remember, that it's a shared thing, and he sacrifices for me as well.
Well said.
Thanks.
I pray you executed it equally as well, and that it's a memory, photographed thing in time that warms Mike's soul in those, the moments when he struggles.
I'm learning. Thank you. Yeah, we'll keep at it. So it's only Monday. We've got a full week ahead. We've got our guest didn't work out today, but we'll get her rescheduled. And we have
Maybe
a
she can
couple.
do it tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll see it. But I was going to ask you after if there was anything she needed to do technically, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah, well, there's a ton she probably needs to do, but
so
we'll
we could
figure
make
it out
better.
and we'll get it. We'll troubleshoot it more extensively. We'll put her on the special program of troubleshooting, which is an hour before the show. And we'll go
it's
from
on
there.
steroids. The
Yes,
troubleshooting
yes.
on steroids. We do that for special guests. Yes. No,
Yes.
we have a lot of people with difficulty with it, or not a lot, but a fair amount. But if
We've
not,
gone a long stretch without any.
yeah, we have. Yeah, we've had some that
Well,
just
like,
click right on.
Like
I know that's
the
always
ones that
great
I'm
for
just
you.
like, yes, victory.
Well, you're very patient. I was watching your face and I was like, he looks pretty patient. Because it is kind of a grind.
Overwhelmed. We've both
Yeah.
been there in our past where you want to be on this show, you're trying to
Yes.
troubleshoot something, you have no idea what's wrong, and you're just like, man, this opportunity is never going to come back. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't
We'll see you
panic.
tomorrow.
Yeah, don't panic. Yeah, they do think that. I think they think this is their last chance, and it's like, don't worry, we'll get you back on.
So let's talk about the Lindell Recovery Network and the launch of website 2.0.
Oh, I'm so excited. And Jason, I shared with you, I was able to talk to Paul Lavelle, the founder of Operation Restored Warrior. And that is really the cornerstone of the Lindell Recovery Network. And we're creating a new site. People will have accessibility to the men's and women's ORW courses right on the front page. We're removing any kind of gates to get in there. And it always has been free, but we're not going to have the access video and different things that people need to do to get in there. But we want to put the ORW course front and center because, like, I was talking to Paul on the phone, and Paul said, all these videos are powerful and great, but without heart restoration, people are going to struggle. And that's
exactly
really our I'm looking up here because I have it pasted here. The goal or the mission statement of the LRN, and this is something you're supposed to be able to recite under duress, but to restore hearts and break the chains of addiction through Jesus Christ. So heart restoration. And that's a phrase that Mike and I kind of collaborated on, like, this is what we want it to be about. And what better way to do that than with ORW? That's how people can experience, as you well know.
Yeah, no, I'm, again, if I could give everyone one gift, it'd be no matter who they are to go through the ORW course.
Yeah.
Amen. Just take the time to invest in yourself. For the love of God, just please do that. And you will have your whole, no matter who you are, you're going to come out of it on the backside better than you went in. But for a vast majority of people, it's going to be transformative in a way. You won't be the same person by the end.
Yes, I agree. I would love anyone on here, like my friend Kelly is on here, other people, go through that course and give us your feedback. We would love to have you on to talk about how it impacted you. You can go through it in a day or, however you want to spread it out over a weekend, but you can easily get through it if you set aside a few hours to get through the material. I don't mean get through it. I mean, it's going to be go at your own pace, but what I'm trying to say, it isn't going to be weeks or months for you to complete this. It's well done.
It is very well done. It is, intuitive. It is challenging. And again, if you go in there with an open mind, or heck, even a relatively closed mind, you're going to come out a different person.
Yeah. Like we've said, Jason, every time you go through it reveals something else. It's not a one and done thing. I'm glad you asked, Kelly. Go to lindellrecoverynetwork.org and then go to option C. And we're going to make this easier, but right now you have to go to door C to get into the ORW course. I think you would really enjoy it. It'd be really good for you, anybody, to go through it and just reveal some of the things. Maybe you've had prayer and deliverance and all these things, but you still struggle in some areas. It can bring up unresolved things or maybe resentments or areas needing forgiveness. It's just a really powerful tool.
Well, I'll tell you, you know what? I've got good news.
You going to pull it up?
No, I got good news. No, this isn't for that.
Oh,
we are down to 1 strike on YouTube again.
Yes. Was today the day it came off?
It's gone.
Oh, that's so good. I'm so happy, Jason. Mike's always so surprised we're still on YouTube.
Yeah,
Mike
our
Lindell.
next one expires on July 23rd. Can we make it?
We can make it. We can be good. I've been sort of coaching people. Okay, don't talk about this. Don't talk about this. We don't want to. We don't want to censor people, but we have to be a little careful on YouTube. Thank you, Kelly. We would love to hear your feedback on the course.
Love to hear your feedback on it, Kelly, and I think you'll really, really enjoy it. But yeah, so we're no longer one mistake and you're gone.
I feel a breath of relief.
Yes. No, it's just like, what did he say? I need a mute button.
Yes, that would help, wouldn't it?
Beep, beep, beep. You know, you need to put it on a 15-second delay.
Yeah, that's what we need. It's so weird too how they go back and comb through stuff that was long ago. Yeah. But God has kept us alive, Jason. It's pretty amazing. I was thinking we've been doing this for over 2 years. We have about 400 episodes, I think. And the Lord has blessed this. And it's been a struggle at times. And it's been us just persisting every day and his grace carrying us. But it hasn't been like just an explosive growth, because that would have been cheap. I mean, we need to work for it and trudge through it.
Well, I think this is all part of, if you think this is easy, I'm going to show you it's not, but keep at it and I'll bless it.
I think you're
and to have, like, most people who do this are are struggling financially and everything else, and to have Mike Lindell carrying us while we're doing this, is amazing, right? So again, we're not blessing. On grow or not, and we got to cave and conform and do that. No, he's stand your ground, do what stand fast, and and just keep at it, and we'll keep stepping up to the plate and swinging.
Yeah, we're almost 2K on YouTube. We don't pay much attention. I mean, our YouTube following is kind of low because just different factors, but we're on all these different Christian platforms, and we have great audience on Getter that we're really thankful for anybody who's able to get hope from this show and able to help it in their spiritual walk.
One soul is enough.
That's right.
One soul is enough. So, so again, we thank you all for joining us, and I think it's time to pray it out.
All right. Yes. Stay with us this week. We've got great guests, Dr. Mark Shaw, who's an addiction specialist, but he is a biblical addiction specialist. So I'm excited to talk to him, as well as Liz Collin, the former WCCO reporter who wrote the book about George Floyd. So anyway, and if we can get Sue on tomorrow, we'll try to do that. But let's pray, and we'll send you off into your Monday. Father God, we come before you now in Jesus' name. Lord, we thank you for this day, this Monday. We thank you for your presence, your blessings, just being able to do this, being able to be a mouthpiece for you to bring glory to your name. And even though technically things didn't work out with our guest, Lord, we know that you use everything for your glory. So we ask you to help it reschedule in a way that works for both of us, or all of us. And Lord, we thank you just for our conversation, for everything you're doing in our lives. We ask you to help us maintain attitudes of gratitude, that we would be always focused on your glory, just your awesomeness, even when circumstances are tough in our lives, that we would be grounded and anchored in you, and that we would keep our eyes fixed on you. And Lord, I pray for everyone on this broadcast today, or who finds it later, Jesus, that it would be used for your glory, to bring them hope, that would bring them encouragement, and that they would turn to you with whatever struggle they're facing, that they would know that there was hope and healing and freedom in your name, and that they would seek you for whatever their needs are. We ask you to bless our week, help it go well with our guests, Lord, that it would all be used for your glory, that you would take us out and just use it to further your kingdom. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right, everyone. God bless you. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Have a great day.
You're listening to The Hope Report. If you were blessed by this episode, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channels.